So the subject of this episode is all about the counteroffer. Now I know, everyone has an opinion, everyone has a set of beliefs. So many times we will hear people saying, I can't believe that they've been counteroffered, I can't believe they've taken it, I can't believe they've offered them 10 grand, 20 grand more to stay. What surprises me the most is the surprise. Now I guess there's a bit of an apology too, right? The title of this, How to Prevent Counteroffers. Truth be known, people, you can't stop a business from counter-offering somebody that they want to keep. So really what we're talking about is reducing candidate susceptibility by getting better at managing the process. Or we reduce our own susceptibility to it by being better at identifying true motive and reasons that people have engaged with us in the first place, so we don't set things up for an inevitable collapse of deal. We build something that creates a placement. Because a long time ago, people, it used to be called the placement process, and for reasons unknown we've started to call it the recruitment process. Maybe because it leads to where we want to get to less frequently than it used to. But hey, who am I to judge, right? I've only been around for 31 years in recruitment and trained over 16,000 recruiters. Who am I to have an opinion on these things? Oh, wait, I know. Hello. So look, let's have a deeper dive into the whole subject of the counteroffer. There is a very definite reason why I've chosen to do this episode now, because from what I'm seeing, counteroffers are on the increase. Candidate susceptibility is also tracking the same way, and therefore we are seeing more recruiters than ever before lose deals to events that, although predictable, were unforeseen. Because there are three key challenges, right? Challenge number one, we're in a super volatile world at the moment. At the time of recording this, we're paying $1.89 for diesel. That is a lot of money for a litre of diesel. I feel that there is a correlation between what we pay at the pumps and the level of anxiety and concerns that exist in the community that also manifests when somebody is a candidate. So I guess what I'm saying, people, the more you pay for petrol, the more likely it is candidates are going to wobble through processes, because petrol is an indicator of the global political situation. And when things are volatile, it impacts us. And at an unconscious level, we kind of join in with concerns and anxieties. And sometimes it feels safer to stay where you are. Challenge number two revolves around the fact that as people themselves enter processes, it has never been easier to get into a recruitment process than ever before. Quick apply buttons. Not really having to look for a job because jobs come towards you. The number of recruiters who are all over people's LinkedIn profiles. Actually joining in isn't that difficult. And if somebody flatters you, somebody makes you feel like they're genuinely interested in you, you might not be thinking about the end goal. You're just enjoying a moment where somebody is making you feel good whilst you have a job where you feel taken for granted. It doesn't ipso facto equate to, I will resign, leave and start somewhere else. And then challenge number three revolves around the reality of our own anxieties, our own concerns, because we know that clients want to hire good people. They send us out with a fussier brief than perhaps they have in the past. So it increases the quality of individual that we need to find to be able to get traction and action. And as we do so, we start to introduce them to more keepers, people that other businesses don't want to let go of. So as we increase the quality of people that we find and present to our clients, not only are we seeking to help our clients improve their productivity, we are on occasion starting to find the true keepers who are more likely to have an aggressive counteroffer put in front of them. But the truth about counteroffers, particularly in agency land, most recruiters leave it too late to talk about it. They kind of assume that if the person is involved in the early stages and happy to be put forward or happy to progress to interview stages, well, because it's moving forward, there's no need to talk about it. And it's only as they get closer to the event, 2 minutes to midnight, they start to talk about it. And or many focus on the wrong thing. They think a counteroffer is money because that's what they were told by their predecessors, right? There is this unwritten myth that apparently counteroffers, they're financial. So we need to position things with people to say, what are you going to do if they offer you more money to stay? Well, some of them might stay if the business fired Stinky Pete. Some of them might stay if they were allowed to be a little bit more flexible with start and finish times. Some of them might stay if there was simply a little bit more access to more meaningful work. They just work with a recruiter who appears to be so obsessed about money. The only reason I'm going to tell them that I'm staying is money because it seems to be the only thing that they get, you know? So let's stop fixating on counteroffers being financial. Let's stop asking the question, what are you going to do if they offer you more money? And let's stop positioning it as being something which is hypothetical. Let's make it inevitable. Now, wrong with saying to somebody, hey, I think you're good. Not only do I think you're good, but I think that my client is going to think that you're good, which makes me believe that this is going to accelerate. And I don't think it will be that long before we're talking about the inevitable. They're going to want to offer you the job. You're likely to have to make some deep and meaningful considerations. So what are you going to do when? And when we make it inevitable, what will you do when they ask you to stay is very different to think about compared to what will you do if they ask you to stay. Position it as inevitable. You get a better conversation from it. And the majority of consultants today somehow convince themselves that this deal's okay. Like, they really hate it where they are, so they're definitely on the move. They've tried to leave before and they didn't. They stayed for a counter, so there's no way that they're going to stay for it again. Or this client is so juicy and so lovely and so appealing. Why would anyone not join? So we create these micro rules. Rules to break the unwritten rule. Always make sure you are talking about the inevitable at the beginning, not waiting until the end. Because otherwise, you'll be in that collection of people who say, I did everything that I could. And you'll do LinkedIn updates talking about how you did everything that you could and questioning the flakiness of people and their genuine interest in truly making a move compared to being super transactional and seeking to get elevation in their current role and leverage on a pay rise. And you just sound like, oh, you know what you sound like. So just stop it. Do the things that are in your control. And the things that are in your control, if things shift, if markets move, so should you. Follow the market, change, adapt, evolve, right? When you focus on the things that are in your control, you're at power. If you focus on the things that you blame on other people's control, decisions and emotions, well, unfortunately, you're building a roller coaster. And for all those people who say recruitment is a roller coaster, it is if you build it. You don't have to build the thrill ride of the ups and downs. You could create something which is super consistent. Your choice, right? So when you look at the candidates you have in process, like just pause for a moment and look at people who are out on interview today or this week or last week, right? And just ask yourself a simple question on each of those candidates. How did we get to here? Because either they approached you or you approached them. Either way, there are different sets of concerns. You approach them, they've done no work. They have been flattered and enticed, but they haven't got the momentum to want to move on unless you can help them to discover it. And if they came to you, then they probably came towards others as well. Which means that the amount of choice and the amount of pressure and the erratic behaviours that could happen in the future, they need to be dealt with today, right? So as we assess the momentum, let's look at it as being tension. There is tension that needs to be in a process. The tension that is required to have things that I'm moving away from and things that I'm moving towards. The magnetism of attraction. The repulsion of looking to leave somewhere. And making sure we've identified those things in abundance. Or at least in balance, right? When you know what they're moving away from and what they're moving towards. They don't have to be the opposites of each other. They just create a really powerful set of things to be able to isolate. The reasons for moving. Like the simple question of why do you want to leave? And you'd be amazed at how many people ask the question, hey Barry, why do you want to leave? And they accept from Barry, well, I don't really. I'm just interested to see what's out there and I thought this looked good. They accept that as being, well, that's definitely got momentum. It needs a dig, right? Same as when we ask, what are you looking for? Oh, I'm looking for a new challenge. Yes, I decided, despite all of the global political unrest and all of the volatility in the world, what I really needed to add to the mix just to spice it up was a desire to suddenly look for a new challenge elsewhere. I think somewhere someone has rehearsed a reason to leave, a reason to join somewhere, just to be able to sit in a shop window and to appraise things based upon their true decision criteria, which may or may not include getting leverage with their current employer. So 3 power tools that I share in your people engine. I share the values elicitation, being able to dig deep to find out what truly matters to another human being, the things that they want, not the need list that they've created. I share the motivation grid, the 4 key boxes that help us to be able to understand what are the drivers that are actually moving this person forward. How do we get underneath the skin to be able to start to see each of those key factors, the push, the pull, what would make them reject a job, what would make them stay where they are, as 4 different parts of a balance sheet or a scorecard. And I also share the Ecology Test. Imagine talking to somebody who's been with the same company for 6 years without promotion, and they responded to your LinkedIn message and said, yes, let's talk about it. And you asked them, what made you decide to reply? Oh, I don't know, I just decided it was time for a new challenge, you know. No, they didn't. They don't get out of bed and think that. They don't have that triggered by a LinkedIn message. And if we accept it as truth, we might not discover the reality until it is time for a real decision to be made. So we need to test things. Test tenure. Test reasons for leaving. Test the whole ecology of changing jobs. Full stop, not just in this market. If somebody's had 3 employers, they've only ever resigned twice. You know that, right? How can somebody with 12 years experience, who has resigned twice in that period of time, know exactly what to expect, how they're going to deal with it, and what it means to be a good leaver? We coach people to make good decisions. We coach people to become good leavers. We coach people to make sure that they are doing the right thing for themselves. Otherwise, they could be susceptible to the flattery of a manager, begging them to stay, misreading the insincerity as more money as being a cheaper way to fix a problem than having to hire a stranger. The things that they take as being indicators of their capability, that if they weren't done yesterday, well, why are they doing them today? What's changed? So as we use these power tools to help us to be able to move forward, the values elicitation, that deep dive to know what people really want, the motivation grid to help us to be able to see with clarity the push, the pull, the reject, the stay, and the ecology check, how we actually use what is in front of us as data to help us to be able to ask good questions. Now we can start to feel more certain. Timing of doing this at the beginning, before we even share the CV with the end client. Test and test again. Test them on what is it about the role that I've described that attracts you. Make sure that they can actually show you the stickiness. Test those reasons for leaving against what could it take to get you to stay. Everyone would stay, right? Were removed. What reasons do I now have to leave? Just because money wasn't on the list doesn't mean it's going to happen. And that means if somebody gets offered more money to stay, we can highlight to them that was never a motive in the first place. Don't let greed, don't let pride, don't let ego get in the way of you looking after your best interest as a professional. Remember why you were doing this. So it's a bit like following the yellow brick road. We go together with the candidate. We help them when they have moments of being the cowardly lion to find their bravery. We help them when they have moments of being the tin man and they start to question whether they really have a heart for this. And we help them when they become the scarecrow and they mindlessly follow something without thinking about, is that for me or is that for somebody else? So our process management, It lives and breathes with the candidate based upon the we have around motivation. The quality of our interview preparation, making sure that they are ready, not ready for the interview, ready to be offered a job, ready to make an assessment about a decision that could be an inevitable. At some point they'll offer you the job. During the interview, you need to be interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you. This is a two-way process in terms of decision. The danger is you go for the interview, you wow them with your capability, and you forget to ask your own questions. You don't do the assessment. And you rely on their naked ability to present to you in a coherent fashion exactly what you want to hear. So your lack of questions could create doubt. And between us as recruiters, if someone else interviews them better, it may not be the right role, but it could turn out to be the most attractive because of how it gets shared. So the quality of those questions are important. And after the event, let's stop calling it interview feedback. Let's stop asking consultants, did you get feedback from the candidate? It's called a debrief. Google the definition of debrief, people. It is a meaningful process. We want to get under the skin as to what happened. Let's investigate the nature of the conversation. Let's find out what was discussed, what was working, what wasn't, what was asked, where they felt a little stuck, who else they got introduced to, what was shown to them, how it was described to them. All of the things that could create it a post-mission debrief rather than event feedback. It's not a happy clappy sheet, people. We want to get to the truth. And if we manage our interview process well, and we manage our resignation process well, we should be able to prepare a candidate to resign, help them to be able to craft good resignation letter, help them to understand what it means to be a good leaver, helps them to understand what it means to have a decision which is resolute, and help them to recognise the early warning signs of a business who may be not thinking about the candidate's best welfare, but their own, and how they might cobble together a new job that hasn't been signed off properly and it's been created so quickly. How could they ever actually honour giving it to the candidate? And the same with the pay rise that they cook up. So as we prep them for resignation, we debrief them afterwards, we manage a healthy notice period. Let others in your sector, let others in your space suffer from the malaise of dropouts and candidate backing out and counteroffers being accepted, or people not starting on the first day because they continue to interview elsewhere to make a decision. Let's bring back what recruitment really is about managing process. Let's stop being weak, administering a process and crossing our fingers, and then feeling aggrieved when it doesn't go our way, and finding the only way to vent is in public on LinkedIn so that all of our future candidates and clients can see and hear how unable we are to deal with the emotions that are associated with human interaction. And rather than encourage our future customers to engage with us, we repel another 20 people from responding to future emails about exciting opportunities or low-grade email sales outreach about perfect candidates for jobs that I haven't been briefed on, because they both end up with a lucky escape because you declared in your LinkedIn update with your frustrations just how bad you are at being able to manage process. So on that cheery note, folks, there's plenty in your control. Maybe take a look at your work in progress, take a look at those candidates that you're working with, ask yourself some cold questions. 2 killer questions to ask yourself. Based upon what I know, what probability do I put on the client offering this person the job? And make it a percentage. It's a 50-50. It's 40%. It's 80%. Do not delude yourself to go to 100. And then ask the same question of the candidate. If the candidate is offered the job, what percentage probability do I put on them accepting it? And if I have to mitigate that with if it's the right money, then I'm already trying to convince myself something is going to happen because I had to use if. So I create a percentage. So let's imagine that we are 60% certain the client will offer them, because they are interviewing somebody else, but they prefer our candidate, 60%. And let's say that we are 40% certain that the candidate will take it because the candidate has the option of staying where they are or another opportunity, which is at final stage this week, that they think they're going to get offered, that they see as being a preference. So if one is 60% and one is 40%, we multiply the two together, and 40% of 60% is, people, exactly 24% chance of deal. If it scores less than 40 when you multiply one by the other, do yourself a favour. Go get a more committed candidate, or go get a more committed client, or even better, work your process to increase both parties' commitment to each other rather than just seeing it play out because it is the way that it is. And trust your guts, dude. You know you have 100,000 neurons in your gut. There is a reason people talk about gut feel, and it gets poo-pooed. I couldn't think of a better word, like poo-pooed. It gets poo-pooed. Gut feel, don't rely on your gut. Rely on your gut and allow your gut to steer your questions. Allow your gut to slow down to help you to find the evidence that unconsciously it was responding to. And you'll do better, right? Good scorecards, good qualification processes. They're simply gut feel presented in an evidence-based way to share with somebody else. When I build scorecards, when I build out processes, I'm documenting gut. It helps inexperienced people behave like experienced people quicker. So people, if you like some of the things that I'm saying, I'm glad. If there is discomfort with some of the things that I'm saying, I'm glad. But either way, I'd love to hear your thoughts and your feedback. Drop me a note. Let me know. And maybe there could be an opportunity for you to join the 500 or more consultants who currently enjoy being part of your people engine.